MS Now's Kevin Fry has been talking to voters in Bangor. Kirby Wilson is politics editor for the Maine Trust for Local News, which owns several of the state's daily papers. And Barbara Boxer is former Democratic senator from California. Eugene Robinson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and MS Now political analyst. Great to have all of you with us. And Kevin, there's a decent amount of hand-wringing going on from Democrats on the national stage, but is that being echoed by voters where you are?
There is some of that, but I will say we've talked to probably more than 3 dozen, maybe 4 dozen voters over the course of the last few days as we've made our way around Maine. And quite frankly, most of the folks we're hearing from say, yes, we understand these stories are out there. Yes, we are digesting these stories. But right now, we are willing to believe that that is behind him. He is changing himself. We trust his judgment going forward, and we believe that this is a redemption story. Still, there is that lingering question. We get past today, and there are certainly folks who have said to me, what shoe is going to drop next? What is the next story? Is there going to be another revelation that could imperil his chances in November? Folks here are very cognizant that this race is critical when it comes to which party controls the U.S. Senate heading into next year. So here's a sense of what we heard from some voters as they were coming to this polling place in Bangor this morning. If it's a Collins versus Plattner matchup, I know how you'll be voting. Are you confident about? Is there anything that could make you rethink backing him?
Nothing that I can think of, but the unthinkable, we've seen it happen. So I keep an open mind.
He's admitted, I wasn't a great boyfriend,
Yeah.
But that's a normal part of life. So, I'm gonna listen and learn more directly from people as much as possible. So. There will be a line. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna stay open and observant.
Now, and there's kind of the key question that no one can answer for me when I've asked this question, which is what is the line where it is too far? We've talked to some folks who have said that, they might just not vote for Senate at all. They don't want Collins, but they also maybe won't be able to bring themselves to vote for Plattner. Some even told me that they might vote for Collins instead because they've, believed that she does have somewhat of a moderate streak. One other kind of component that we're going to be watching here and that I've heard from voters throughout the day and the last couple days is what the Janet Mills contingency ends up looking like. We just spoke with a woman just outside. She declined to go on camera, but she told me that she voted for Mills, can't support Plattner because she told us she sees some of the allegations against Plattner as mirroring too close what happened with the accusations against Trump, and she feels the Democrats should essentially be holding themselves to a higher standard.
All right, Kevin Fry, thank you for that reporting. And Kirby, is there a threshold in your mind that Plattner needs to reach to ease Democrat concerns about whether he can actually win in the fall? And what are you going to be watching for today?
A numerical threshold is a little difficult to say, but at the bare minimum, he needs to escape a ranked choice runoff. We have ranked choice voting here in Maine, and so he needs to clear a majority tonight to assuage the most basic concerns. To my mind, what's happened so far is mostly a recapitulation of the dynamics of the race as we already expected. Graham Plattner was already known to be a guy with personal baggage. He's also already known to be a guy who has legions of dedicated followers and dedicated supporters. And his campaign is banking on that energy translating to winning over the median voter, whereas Senator Collins is banking on the fact that, okay, sure, she might not be able to pull together a rally of 1,000 people in Portland like Senator Plattner can, or like Mr. Plattner can, but she will be able to convince the median voter, the normie voter, the quiet voter.
What about, this idea that you may have voters that decide to vote for Mills, even though she essentially stopped her campaigning, but she's still on the ballot there? Do you see that playing out?
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a not insignificant percentage of the Democratic electorate that goes with Mills because we have ranked choice voting here and because you can choose your preference. But I've asked those same voters, okay, well, are you going to back Senator Collins in November? And most of them say, absolutely not. I don't think Mr. Plattner's problem is with Democratic voters. the kind that would back Governor Mills, I think his problem is going to be with independents and no party affiliated voters, and even some of the moderate Republicans he hopes to peel from Senator Collins in November.
Yeah, and speaking of, Senator Boxer, even if Plattner wins today, it's a whole other ball game when it comes to the general election. A PAC now aligned with Susan Collins is already releasing ads putting Plattner's remarks front and center. Let's listen.
Graham Plattner called rural Maine stupid and racist.
You're calling me stupid and racist?
Who says something like that?
Plattner said cops are bastards, all of them. Graham Plattner has no respect for law enforcement.
Graham Plattner said some lobstermen are absolutely terrible people.
Graham Plattner, you got it absolutely wrong.
It disgusts me.
Graham Plattner would be a big embarrassment for me.
I would never vote for Graham Plattner.
Senator, given the track record so far, as you heard from Kevin's reporting, people are a little bit worried that there could be another shoe that drops here. How worried do you think Democrats should be going forward?
Let me just take a step back. You never know what shoe's going to drop on who. So let's just move to where we are today. I believe there is a choice, really, between two flawed candidates. Now, that might surprise you. Plattner, he's personally flawed. His painful, ugly past is pretty much, he's owned up to it. But Collins is politically flawed in a blue state, and she does not own up to any of it. She acts like she's bipartisan, but she's voted 94% with Trump for billionaire tax cuts and hurting the middle class. She's taken the lead on many of these awful justices, including Kavanaugh, who she said would never overturn Roe v. Wade. She went to the mat for him. He also was accused of sexual assault, by the way, and he gets confirmed. And now women are bleeding out because they can't get legal abortions in many states. And the last point I'd make is, she was a big cheerleader for the Iraq war. I've read some of her speeches. She said, this is the most important thing. There's weapons of mass destruction. It'll prevent future wars. And then when Plattner says, my God, you voted for that horrible war that made me so sick, she says to him, well, you volunteered. That to me is horrible. So, yeah, you can do all these things against him. And believe me, there's lots to say about someone in a blue state who doesn't fight for the middle class and for the people of Maine. That's my take.
Eugene, there is reporting in Time magazine, and it's been elsewhere as well, that the pushback that Plattner is receiving could actually benefit him in some way. Mm-hmm. One 36-year-old told Politico, Mainers don't want to see one of their own cut down at the knees. They're getting defensive over this. So do you believe that voters could actually connect more with Plattner because of a checkered past and what he is trying to bill as a, apology tour, essentially?
I think it certainly has the potential to strengthen the bonds between Plattner and his core supporters, and maybe actually to attract some more, because the question is, will the central dynamic in this fall's election be establishment versus outsider, populist, something new, something different? There is such a widespread disillusionment or disgust with so-called political elites right now. Well, Susan Collins certainly is one of those. She's been in that Senate seat for a long time. She, as Senator Boxer just reminded us, she took some votes that Mainers do not like and whose repercussions continue. Negative repercussions continue for women, especially across the country. And so this yearning for an outsider, for something new, for something fresh and rough and authentic, I think is, that points at Plattner. So if that's the dynamic of the election, then I think Plattner will be in pretty well positioned this fall.
Senator, as we noted up at the top, it wasn't too long ago that these kinds of unsettling allegations leveled at Plattner would have forced him or any other candidate facing this to bow out of a race. We've talked about this in the past, you and I. Plattner's former political director, Genevieve McDonald, wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post and said, quote, We have learned to excuse what we should condemn. I want better for my daughters and for the people of Maine. The answer to a broken political culture is not to accept it. Demand better from those entrusted with power or seeking it. Enough is enough. Of course, for many Democrats, the concern here is if Plattner goes down, then the chances of taking back the Senate look bleaker. So what's the answer here?
The answer is what I said. All politics, they're choices that you make. So it's for the people of Maine to decide. Plattner has an ugly, brutal past. He's owned up to it. Shoes to drop, I can't talk about that because I don't know about that. But I do know what Susan Collins has done, fought for these right-wing judges. I've talked to many insiders right now who say she's supporting a huge increase in the military budget, in the war budget, which Hegseth wants. I mean, it goes on and on. The last point I'd make is she supported the Save America Act. And that hurt women, too, because if you go to register, you have to bring your birth certificate, your marriage certificate. If you took your husband's name, if you were divorced, you got to get that certificate. It's a poll tax on women. So is it about Plattner's very offensive past that he's stepped up and said, yeah, this happened to me and it's because I went to war and all the things he stated? Or is it about the people of Maine and their kids and grandkids and, what's going to happen with this budget, with the billionaire tax she voted for, which is stealing from healthcare, from everybody. So that's what this is about. I mean, I agree with Jean in terms of this point about inside, outside. But to me, it's more about the people of Maine and who they want representing them and who they want fighting for what they need, not what Susan Collins needs or Plattner needs, but what they need.